Hello. I have a little story time for you guys that has to deal with communion and an astral projection and some astral projection formula stuff. So yesterday before work, I was doing my usual meditations, getting myself lined up, getting myself still. So I was really in tune with what I needed to do that day. However, I needed guidance. I had really kicked salty foods, processed foods, all that for like a solid week, and I was feeling great. But in I think it was the last video where I spoke about how my manager pulled me aside and told me about progressing so I could be in a leadership position. That was a get-together which I stayed at a lot longer than I normally stay at, and so I started getting cravings, and I ate some chips, and I remember there was some brownies there, and your boy loved a good brownie back in the day, so I nibbled on that, and I don't know, it felt like a relapse. I started to crave sweets, I started to crave those salty foods again, so I needed guidance overcoming that yesterday, because I could make it all the way to the end of the night and then something, just a little snack, but it was something to remind me that you are not in control. And one thing I've learned about God, Shiva, the universe, the infinite, whatever you want to call it, that higher power, is that it will show itself in whatever way you allow it to. If you allow it to only show up as numbers, such as numerology, that's how it will show up. If you only decide to allow it to show up in cards, tarot cards, that's how it will show up. If you can only read about God, it will show up in the Bible for you. Wherever your eye is, that's where it will go. And so the more open you are to allowing the infinite to show up in every possible way, not just numbers, but also the Bible, but also as your intuition, and so on and so forth, it can really reveal itself to you. And that's why I really push experimenting with God, experimenting with your idea of the infinite. And so yesterday, I asked for it to come as a voice. The only way to know that if it's true is if I actually listen to it and give it an honest go, actually trust it. And that's what I did. And during my walk, I was saying some pretty smart things, but it was also giving me a free will. It wasn't controlling. It was like, hey, if you follow me, this is how things are going to pan out, but you don't have to. And if you don't expect things to pan out this way. It's like a coach, you know? Do these drills, practice these sets of moves, and you will be a great player. But if you don't do that, I can't promise you're going to be a great athlete. It's the same way with God when it comes to what he promises. And he told me how to go about finishing the Astral Formula, which I need to remake one video. I know exactly what I'm gonna make for the sleep one, and then boom, I'm gonna make the technique. So that'll be fun. And as I'm walking to work, I started to stress out a little bit about my tip jar. I've been a little bit more social lately, and so I like to use physical cash as much as I can. And I have a tip jar, which is all the tips people have given me, and it is starting to run a little bit lower than I'd like, right? But I have to remember, but this is from the kindness of people's hearts. This is other people paying for my stuff, essentially. And so as I'm walking, I'm thinking about that, and the voice is like, why worry? I am the doer of all things. That doesn't really mean anything in word form, but something else happened. When you're interacting with anything, with anyone, you're actually interacting with their consciousness. That's all any interaction is consciousness. Even if it's a tree, a squirrel, a bird, the air, the water, it's different expressions of consciousness. Now I know like water, air, rocks, it's a little bit more abstract to think of life that way. And I don't really want to push the example in that direction, but I want to push the example as the one that I did in the last video with the tree, right? So, whoopsie. Right there, right? So each one of us, when we identify with our body and our character, are those individual leaves, right? But we're part of the whole. The thing that connects us all and makes us one is that we are all simply just consciousness. It's expressing ourselves mentally, emotionally, and physically. Because when someone is talking, such as I am now, it's just a physical expression of a mental expression going on within me. But who's witnessing all that? Consciousness. Who's the one pushing the energy in that direction? Consciousness. And so that is the doer of all things. That is what the voice was making me realize. But at the same time that it did that, I was walking to work, so there were cars driving by. I'd say around 95% of my consciousness was put in my body, but another 5% was pushed out and started to see through the eyes of everyone driving. You know why I could do that? You know why I was given that? Was because I was seeing through their consciousness, through the witness. It is something that's happened to me through astral projection as well, where I embody someone else entirely, where I am in two places at once, so to say. Because consciousness is not limited to this body. It is all pervading. Though when it is given a form, it seems separate if you view it on that plane only, on the physical. I don't know if I did a great explanation there towards the end of that, but I hope I got the point across of what it meant by I am the doer of all things. So this is really weird if you think about it, because it's consciousness interacting with itself while it views itself as a higher power and the lower power, and it's identifying as lower power, which was me. And I was reaching out to the all-knowing aspect as the guidance. So that was really cool. And it also told me to grab $20 in cash, and it told me exactly what to buy when I went grocery shopping that day, so I could make it through the night. One large thing of orange juice, a bag of green grapes, and 2 organic mangoes. That was pretty good, and it fit within the $20 range. However, I've tasted the sweet nectar of organic carrot juice, and carrot juice is so good, so good. I'd been drinking a lot of orange juice, so I wanted a little bit of a change, but I wasn't sure if my normal grocery store had the carrot juice. Lo and behold, when I walk in, 2 things of 52 ounces of cold press organic carrot juice. That is 104 ounces versus half that amount that I would have gotten with orange juice, so 52 ounces, for almost the same price. But the voice was like, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? If you wanna know me, you gotta listen to me. And so I swallowed that urge, bought the orange juice, bought the mangoes, bought the grapes, and it came out to $19.47. There was a 90-cent difference between the 1 thing of orange juice and the 2 things of carrot juice. I would not have made the cut with my physical money if I bought the carrot juice. So to me, that was like, okay, cool, on to something. Keep walking, keep going. And at this point, like, I'm in a pretty high state as I'm in communion with this thing. I haven't said a word in almost 2 hours because my focus is just on this thing. And I finally sit down, and I'm about to crack open the orange juice, and it says, we're gonna sit in a prayer. We need to be thankful. And I was like, this is odd, because technically I would just be praying to you. Like, that's kind of prideful. And this is where the weirdness kind of began. Because as I sat down and closed my eyes, you know how when you close your eyes, you can kind of still see through the eyelids. You can tell the light's hitting behind the eyelids. It's kind of bugging you. That kind of just went away. That wasn't there. My awareness was just put in this black space. And this voice which I was listening to and the awareness that was witnessing it became one. At this point, the voice which was guiding me was my voice, which, if you think about it, it was the whole time, because all this was taking place within me. And it was thinking this massive feeling of love, security, peace, everything that you'd associate with an encounter with God, when you know God is there, when you know God is looking after you. Replace that word with whatever higher power, Allah, Shiva, Jesus, whatever you want. But that feeling when you encounter that infinite was there. And then when I opened my eyes, everything separated once again. And I verbally said, whoa. And then I took sips of my orange juice, and I went out throughout my day, not messing up, and I overcame it. It promised me a gift if I listened to it. If I went all the way and actually listened to it, it said tonight there would be gifts. So last night, after everything, after I'd overcome the urges and I waited and powered through, I set up for my astral projections, as it gave me the knowledge of what I need to make from next video on the Astral Formula, which in turn helped me make the procedure that you guys need to go through even more solid, even more clear. Put myself through it, and I laid down. And that guiding voice was there. Be with me. You need to be here now. You need to be here now. You need to be here now. Don't lose me. Don't lose me. And it was making sure that that practice of astral projection was very solid. I have been off my stuff for the past 2 days. I really haven't astral projected in the past 2 days, at least not consciously, which is upsetting. But last night, that was a gift. And so I witnessed something that had to do with this. If you're smart, you can put it together. This primal urge, which I've been gaining control over, but this experience out in the astrals triggered it up. And it was crazy because I would astral project, I would come back here, and in this, I'm going to use the word that's going to give it up, lust for this satisfaction of this urge, I would astral project again. I was literally like a beast that could astral project. I was mindless. I just wanted the primal pleasures, the sense pleasures, which out in the astrals you can get, but that's not what you should do it for. And so I would astral project, and I would come back like every 30 seconds. I couldn't maintain myself out there. And I was like, what is going on? And at one point I catch a glimpse of this figure out in the distance in these white robes, coffee colored skin, and white hair. And I've seen this man before because I've learned from this man and I've been guided by this man. And it just again goes to show the Christ-like stature of some of the people that we live with on this very day. Though we might not know them by name, once they merge with that infinite, they might as well be a walking God on this planet. And I mean that as the walking infinite, that walking love. Yogi Raj. Now you have a name to the form. If you're curious, just type that up. Take my description, you'll find him. So I see that figure in the distance. Immediately I know this is the person pushing me back, keeping me from losing my mind, essentially, because that's what happens every time anyone gives into this urge. It's what happens every time I go into this urge. You lose your mind for a bit. You have no control. And it's only until you come down from the high that you gain control again. So I came back. And at this point I'd gained more consciousness. And it was very similar to the Scared to Tears video where there was many voices going on. It wasn't the same as where my consciousness was fractured into 3 different areas. I was all gathered here, but I was definitely hearing voices. And I was like, okay, like I have control. I want to go out again. And what I did this time is I listened to the voices and I pushed my awareness in my body in that direction. I pushed my energy in that direction. As I started to slowly leave the cocoon of my physical, I got scared because everything looked so similar to the night where things freaked me out that fear came back up and I didn't want to go out. But that in itself was also a lesson, as was Yogi Raj pushing me back in my body. That I have been antsy, and it's true. When I succumb to those urges, such as the food that I was talking about, such as that lust, I lose my deep peace. And that's why people, to begin with, seek sense pleasures, is because they lose that deeper peace. And so they seek pseudo-happiness, fake relaxation through drugs, through food, through people. Because that high that they get is a temporary bandage until they have to then return back to their default state of that lack of peace. And so if you meditate, if you go deep enough to where you actually balance out that deep distress, you'll gain that pleasure, that peace, which is actually why you eat those things, why you seek these people, why you take those drugs. You'll gain that good feeling, and you won't need anything. And so just from that, and also from the little astral projections that I went through, they were short, but they each had a lesson which showed me my restlessness. I had come to terms that I needed that peace back. It had been 2 days, but it had been 2 days far too long. And this all started with that guiding voice of God. It's weird because I speak about it in a dual sense, but that merging moment before work, before I drank, showed me a lot. Showed me a lot about our inner power. I've made videos about something like this before, I think called channeling the all-knowing aspect. But the thing is it's like a coach. If you don't listen to the coach's teachings, you can't expect the coach's promise. You can't expect to get what they're promising. And so this is the first time in a while that I truly sat down and decided to listen, because I've tried my own path. I've tried to listen to the other. It doesn't work. So with that, I'm gonna go outside, I'm gonna get some sun, I'll work on the Astral Formula, all that stuff, but it's a little update with what's been going on. Love you guys. Peace.